Okay, so what do? We just talked about, the review of the material for Math 100, including polynomials. Polynomials certainly were covered in Math 100. We concentrated on, though, for the most part, Math 100, your understanding of the parabola. And so we're just reinforcing what you learned about the parabola in this section of the notes, all right? We'll go through example questions, but I'm hoping you paid attention to what we talked about, all right? Particularly the X and Y intercepts, vertex, axis symmetry, how to graph a parabola, and what a parabola looks like. And the type of graphs you had ones open up and open down, depending on the coefficient on the square term. So we talked about the derivation of the formula. Hopefully you paid attention to that and you understand that. And I'm also hoping that your teachers in Math 100 did that. Whether the students glaze over or not, you need to see where things are coming from. And I would say that's probably more important than being able to use the formula is knowing where something comes from. But again, you need to practice. And where we practice, first we need to be shown examples, and we'll go through that now. I do want to emphasize again, there's little videos inside the notes. You can just click on those and watch the videos if you want. If it's helpful, that's great. If they're not helpful, there's no need to watch them. You need to find out what helps you. And you have to find out what helps you, all right? Your education largely depends on what's helping you move forward, not stagnate or go backwards, but we want to move forward, all right? So we'll do these examples. I'll switch to the whiteboard now. All right, so I'm going to do problem number 1. And it says, find the coordinates of the vertex and the equation of the axis symmetry for the parabola. And it also says go on and graph it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going to write this down for you. And I kind of remember what I read, but I'll write down. They want me to graph this thing out, but they want me to come up with some characteristics. So I'm going to summarize the characteristics they want. They definitely want the vertex. And we'll get that. What else do they want? They want the axis of symmetry. All right. What else do they want? They want us to graph it. Again, we're not looking for great artwork, but this is what we're looking for you to do. All right. Now, I hope you remember back in Math 100, your teacher said to you, oh, maybe you should factor that. But I got to be honest with you, looking at that, that's not going to factor using your finger numbers. So I'm going to say that's probably not productive. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the vertex by formula. So to do that, I want to identify what the A is. All right, if I can do that, that'll be a good deal. Just give me 1 second. Okay, what's the A? The A is 1. All right, what's the B? The B, I got to look at this guy. My screen seems to be not moving along very quickly. I'm not sure why. What's the B here? -4. All right, what's the C? The C is -1. Okay. Now, what's the axis symmetry? I'll write this over here for you. The AOS is -B. Well, -4 is 4, right? Over twice the A. What's twice A? 2. What's 4 divided by 2? 2. So now I know the axis symmetry. It's X equals 2. All right. What's the vertex going to be? Well, I know the X is 2, but I do not know the Y. So I need to write that down for you. Y is, and what's Y? It's the X squared, which is 4, minus 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 1. Well, 4 minus 8 minus 1 is going to be -5. Okay? What am I going to do now? I would like to do one other thing to graph it. I'd like to know what the Y-intercept is. the y-intercept is a point such that x is equal to 0. Now, if x is 0, what would y be? Well, plug it in. It's just simply -1. All right, so I'm gonna make an attempt to graph it. So what do? I put the x-axis down, put the y-axis down, and I'm going to make some kind of attempt to graph this thing out. All right, so the first point I'm going to put down is the y-intercept because it's just too easy. It's 0 minus 1. That's done. Then what do I put down? The axis symmetry, which is 2. That's the axis symmetry. It's x equals 2. What's the vertex? It's 2 comma minus 5. All right, is there anything else I need to put down? No, I think I'm good. I want to draw a shape of a parabola through that. It's going to open up. I don't have much choice in that. Good enough by me. All right. What I want to do is just briefly go back to the key and see how we did. All right. I want to look at the key. So I want to see if I did a good job. All right. So I'm looking at axis symmetry, x equals 2. I'm looking at my key. Vertex 2 comma minus 5. All right. We got a graph down here. Not a bad looking graph. All right. Let's go to the next page. And I'm going to do problem number 2 now. All right. So here's what it says. This is number 2 now. It says find the coordinates of the vertex and the equation of the axis symmetry for the parabola given by the equation and graph it. Well, I'm going to write this down now. And certainly what I'm writing down, y equals. And what does y equal? It equals the opposite of x plus 1 squared minus 5. What am I going to do now? I want to simplify it because I want to go back to what I did in Math 100. All right, so what do you get up here? Minus, this would be x squared. Let's see, plus 2x plus 1 minus 5. I'm still going to simplify it. Let's see, you would get minus x squared minus 2x minus 1 minus 5. I'm still going to simplify. Not a lot of work. Minus x squared minus 2x. Let's see, minus 1 minus 5 is minus 6. All right, what am I going to do? I guess I could factor it, right? Minus 1 x squared x and x. Well, you know what? No matter what I do, I don't think it's going to work out for me, is it? Because if I get 2 and 3, it's not going to get 2 in the middle, or 6 and 1. That's not going to work out. I'll erase that. Someone says you spend a lot of time on that. That's taking too much time. And it really did take a lot of time. I'm going to put the vertex down now. Before I do it, though, I want to write the axis symmetry down now. And what's that going to be? X equals, let's see, the opposite of b. Well, I'm looking at the b is minus 2, right? That's going to be 2 then. The opposite of minus 2 is 2 over twice a. Well, the a is minus 1, so that's minus 2. All right, what's 2 divided by minus 2? Minus 1. So I know the axis symmetry. Now I know the vertex, really. I know x is minus 1. Then the question is, what's y? And that's basically just a plug-in. And if you plug that in, and I want to point out where I would plug it in, right up here at the top. And I'll tell you why. This is the easy guy to plug it in. This is really simple. And what would you get over there? Geez, you get minus 5. And that's the vertex. All right, let me read it again to you. find the coordinates of the vertex and the equation of the axis of symmetry. I've done that. I'll write that down for you. I've done that. Then graph it. And I think I'm good. Let's graph it. I'll put this over here. All right, put the X and Y axes down. I'm going to put an axis of symmetry down. That's -1, right? I'm going to ballpark it. And -1, -5. It's over here somewhere. And then the question is, how does a parabola look? Well, a lot of students get confused by this. So what I'm going to do, I just want to get the Y-intercept. I'm going to put this point down. I'm going to write it down for you. This point over here is -1, -5. I want to get the Y-intercept. And how do you do that? Set X to be 0. And if you did, you get -6. That's a lot of work, isn't it? I'll put that point down for you. And I'll write it down over here for you too. What's this parabola? Opens downward. Someone could say, I don't think you need to do all that work to do that. And I agree, I didn't need to do all that work to do that. And I want to tell you why. This thing's written in a translated form for me. You may recognize that, you may not recognize it. You may not recognize this at all. But looking at it, it's standard translation. So looking at it, I would say the vertex, just looking at the original form, this form over here, is really simple to write down. And what's the vertex going to be? It's only one single point in the curve you're moving around. It's a very simple translation problem. It's going to be -1, comma, -5. Just looking at it. All right. What am I talking about? That this is the parent is a parabola, and the vertex been moved from 0, 0 to -1, -5. And again, it's important that you start thinking about these things as just being a standardized translation. All right. The motion around. And what else happened to it? The parabola has been rotated. Now, granted, I'm not saying you're at that level yet, but I do want to write the form down for you. All right. So I'm going to write this over here, and I'm going to put down, I'll use the green ink, f of x equals, I'll make a simple one over here, a x plus b squared plus c. And a lot of teachers of math actually teach it this way. I don't, though. But the vertex for this one over here is going to be -b, comma c. That's nice to know. The axis of symmetry for this guy over here is going to be x equals -b. If a is positive, it will open up. And this is how a lot of teachers teach in Math 100. I don't, though. If a is less than 0, it opens down. All right, that's number 2. Let's talk about number 3. Number 3 is also a Math 100 question. All right, so I want to read it to you. It says, find 2 quadratic functions, one that opens upward. Now, I repeat this over here. If it opens upward, the coefficient a has to be positive. If it opens downward, the coefficient a has to be negative. All right. Now, what do they give me? They give me X-intercepts. That's all they give me, not a vertex, not a Y-intercept, but X-intercepts. Now, what do I know about that? If that's the case, I want to point out a real simple case over here would be Y, I'll call it Y1, where the A is greater than 0. Now, what's a nice easy number greater than 0? I would say 1 times, well, let's write down, if it has X-intercepts, it factors, right? And what would it factor to be? X plus 2. All right, that's one factor. Why is that? Is as a root of minus 2. And what's the other factor going to be? X minus 3. Where's this coming from? This information here. All right, that's one that opens up. All right, I would like to multiply it out for you. Whoops, sorry about that. This would give you x squared, if you multiplied it out, by the way, minus x minus 6. There's my first one. This one opens up. Let's do the next one, which is one that opens downward. So to open downward, I want to point out A would have to be a negative number. What's a nice easy negative number? I'm going to say minus 1. But you can choose any negative number you want. But it still has the same X-intercepts. So it still has the same factors. X plus 2, X minus 3. Well, if you were to multiply that out, what would you get? You would get, and I'll write in a different order for you, by the way, you would get 6 plus X minus X squared. And this one opens, whoops, down. All right, let's go to 4. Well, what does 4 say? Find the X and Y intercepts of the graph of the parabola. It says nothing about graphing it. So let's talk about the simple ones first. Y-intercept is the first thing to think about because it's so easy to do. How to get a Y-intercept? Set X equal to 0. If you do that, you would get a point 0, 6. There's my Y-intercept. Okay, let's talk about X-intercepts. How do you do that? Set Y equal to 0. Well, let's do that. Okay, I'm going to say if you did that, you might want to try to factor it. You might have to use quadratic form. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but I don't want to go there unless I absolutely have to. And I'm going to say, probably 2 and, let me see. Oh, you know what? I copied it wrong. I'm going to say minus 2 minus 3. Let's see if it works. You get x squared. Minus 3 minus 2 is minus 5. And you get plus 6. So what are my x-intercepts? 2, 0. And what's the other one going to be? 3, 0. Look at the answer key. Everything is in order. Looking good. All right, let's go to the next one. And the next one is going to be number 5, right? Let's see if 5's on this page. No, I guess the next page. Yeah, it's right here. I'd say, I don't know if they gave you something this tough in Math 100. But if you understand what we presented, maybe you'll be able to do it. All right, so I'm going to read it to you. It says, find the values of B. It says there's 2 of them. So I'm going to write that down for you initially. I'm going to say B equals something. I have no idea. I'll call it B1. And they said there's another value. I'll call it B2. I don't know what they are. They said find 2 values of B. Well, if they ended a sentence there, I'd say, oh, 5 and 6. I found 2 values for B. But I think they're going to say more. What do they say? Such that the function has a given maximum value. Well, before I do that, I want to emphasize over here, if you're looking at this, I hope you know that this is a parabola that opens downward. How do I know that? I'm looking at the coefficient. The A is negative, so it opens downward. And this would have a vertex right here, which would be a maximal value. Where does the maximum occur? At the vertex or along the axis of symmetry. Let's write this down. So the axis of symmetry is going to be X equals the opposite of the B. Well, that's little b, isn't it? Over twice the A. Well, the A is going to be -1, so that's -2. And what's minus B over -2? It's simply B over 2. By the way, I still don't know what B is. All right. But what do I do know? I know the maximum value of this particular function is 52. What does that mean? That means the y, or the function, is equal to 52. So let's write that down. 52 is the maximum the function will take on. Again, the maximum speed will be 52. When does that occur? At this particular value of x here. So I'm just going to plug it in up here. Let me do that. Minus something squared plus b times something minus 12. All right, now what's a something? B over 2. Let's go through a simplification. Let's see, you would get minus b squared over 4 for the first term. Then you would get b squared over 2 for the second term. And then you get minus 12. Well, I got some work on my hands. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. You're going to get 64 on the left. And I'm going to combine these two terms here. And what would that give me? Common denominator 4. You would get minus b squared plus 2b squared. And yes, you need to know simple arithmetic to do that. It's basically an algebra skill, but very basic algebra skill. Oh, this is going to, I multiply both sides by 4. What's 4 times, maybe I should write that down for you. What's 4 times 64? That's 256, right? And what would you get there? You would get minus b squared plus 2b squared, which is just simply b squared. And what's b going to be equal to? Plus or minus. Well, what number squared would give you 256? I'd say 16. I'm going to verify that for you. I'm going to multiply. 160. That's 10 times 16, by the way. 6 times 10. And 6 times 6 is 36. You might say I do arithmetic strange. You do it the way you like doing it. We can't disagree upon the outcomes, though. Let's see, 256. Worked out beautifully. So what do I know now? I know what the b's are, and I'll write them down for you. And we'll check it in the HQ later. So I'm going to say minus 16 and 16. All right, let me see if they have 5, the answer down. Yeah, they sure do. We got it right. Okay. Let's go to number 6 now. All right. Find the zeros. Well, what does it say the zeros are? The x coordinates of the x-intercepts. So that should be relatively simple because that's going to be where f of x equals 0. That's why they're called zeros, by the way. If f of x equals 0, they're called zeros. I'm going to write it down, and I want to see if I can solve it. I'm hoping it factors, by the way. I can say 3 and 4, x and x. I would never say it's true unless I checked it. 3 times 4 is 12. 3x and 4x is 7x, and you do get x squared. I now know my zeros. What are they going to be? X equals minus 3. That's the first factor. That's when it becomes 0. And the second factor becomes 0 when x equals minus 4. Look at the answer key. Minus 4, minus 3. Looking good. Let's go to 7. All right. Find the two positive real numbers. Write this down for you. I'll say A and B are real numbers. All right, I know that much. Now, what do they say about those two positive real numbers? Oh, you know what? Maybe put the positive sign over here. Positive real. Find two positive real numbers whose sum is 86. I'll write this down over here. A plus B is 86. Now they say something really strange. They say the product is a maximum. I bet this has something to do with what we learned about parabolas. So see if you can write this down. So I'm going to take this 86 thing, and I'm going to solve, I don't know, maybe for B. So B would equal 86 minus A. All right, something you did in Math 100. You like one-letter problems. So I'm going to write this down now. And it's going to be A times the B. And what's the B? Well, the B is 86 minus A. I know this is tough, by the way. This is now that function of A. By the way, a lot of people get creeped out by the letter. They say, I don't want to use that letter A. I want to use X's. You can do that. All right. I'm actually going to do that for you. Let me write this down. X. Just changing my letters around because people get very frustrated with the letter choice. I think you see, it's really not much of a difference, right? Again, some people question, why would you do that? Well, I think the only reason I would have done that is so it looks more familiar to me. And now what I want to do is I want to graph f of x. All right, let's do it. Well, I got a 0 here. And I got a 0 at 86. Where would the axis of symmetry be? It's got to be simple. It's got to be in the center. So what's the axis of symmetry? X equals 43. All right. How does the parabola open though? Well, I'm going to multiply this out for you. If I did that, what would you get? 86x minus x squared. What's the coefficient? It's negative. It's got to be opening down. And I'm going to put that down for you now. I'm going to put in green. It's going to do something like this over here. Vertex up there somewhere. We'll talk about that later. That occurs at 43, f of 43. All right, again, I know it's kind of common. Let's go back and see if we can read it again. It said find two, right, positive real numbers whose sum is 86 and whose product is a maximum. Well, you know, I did the maximal part. This is definitely a maximum over here. What I want to know is what are the two numbers? Well, I only found one of them. And what's the number going to be? I found x to be 43. What's the other number? It's x. I'm sorry, 86 minus 43. So what's the other number? Y is also 43. All right, I think that's the last question. Yeah, it is. We have 7 questions. All right, tough section though for some students. I'm going to say what's tough. There's some additional problems that you've not done in Math 100. You should study those problems, but in the other problem set, you will see examples that are very similar to these. All right, and again, if you need additional support, please come by during office hours, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you.